I'm a philosopher, so I'm going to try to give this talk without slides, which will be new for me as well as for you. A philosopher of science who works on the nature of science, but increasingly interested in the way that scientific knowledge is communicated to the rest of the world, as probably we all are as we try to negotiate this pandemic. So that led me to suggest for this talk the following thesis, that we should publicly fund science journalism. Now, as the old models of the media fall apart and implode, you increasingly see people suggesting perhaps that all journalism should be publicly funded. Certainly here in the US, people have suggested that, or in fact, there is already an initiative underway to fund local news to fill in what are perhaps inevitably called news deserts. But I want to talk about something that's special about science in particular, that I think calls for a special attitude to the way that scientific journalism functions in our society. So the fact about science I want to point at is that it is, as a body of knowledge, incredibly disorganized. Okay, picking up on the theme of a couple of talks already in this hour. Really, there's not a whole lot more to the current state of knowledge in any particular scientific discipline, but the often very diverging opinions of the particular scientists who are working on the issues in question. There's no central clearinghouse. There's no tribunal that weighs the evidence and so on. There's just a whole bunch of scientists who each have their own views, who are busy publishing away, creating an enormously rich, but also incredibly difficult to interpret epistemic landscape. Now, when the rest of the world wants to figure out what science has discovered, sometimes they can simply afford to wait for that landscape to become a bit more organized, that is, for consensus to form. But of course, sometimes we can't afford to wait when things are important. When things are really important, as with, say, climate change or the COVID pandemic, we already have various kinds of public funding of institutions that do the work of interpreting science to the public. So for climate change, we have the UN body, the IPCC, which issues reports every 5 or 7 years on the state of scientific knowledge about climate change. With COVID, of course, the WHO, and in this country, the US, the CDC, and similar bodies in other places. When it comes to what to eat, the FDA. But it's really, in these cases, then somebody is really paying the salaries of people to spend all of their time thinking about what the science has shown and putting it in a form that it's actually consumable by people who make public policy, and also, of course, just regular people who have to make decisions for themselves. But as for the rest of science, there is, of course, pretty much nothing in the way of official institutions or bodies doing this work. For the last 50, 70 years, at least, certainly way longer than I can remember, this work has been done, in effect, by science journalists. Now, everyone tells me, and I guess this will probably strike a chord, I think, with all of you, that the climate for science journalism has really gotten terrible. There's just less and less of it going on. Fewer and fewer people are being paid to do it. But I think that the people who are in a situation to go out, first of all, and find the kinds of scientific knowledge and discoveries which should be publicized, which are important to us right now, then to assess the best they can the state of scientific opinion, what's controversial, what's somewhat established, what's really out there, where opinion seems to be going, what work is being done on it, to make those assessments and then to put it all into a format where ordinary people or even extraordinary people can understand it. The people who really know how to do that job are science journalists. And so for the same reason that our tax dollars go to fund the IPCC, the climate body, the WHO or the CDC, and so on, they should go to support some form of science journalism to organize the chaotic but incredibly rich knowledge that science is giving us. And that's why we should publicly fund science journalism. Thanks very much.